Shabbat Shalom, friends. Ecclesiastes, chapter 7, verse 10. Do not ask, why were former times better than these? For that, Ecclesiastes says, is not a question that is born from wisdom. And yet, how tempting it is to wish, to yearn, to pine, to turn back the clock. To live again days of old. We did it just a moment ago when we put the Torah back in the ark, did we not? We said, Chadesh Yameinu kekedem. Renew our days as of old, O God. It's a natural emotion as we walk down the path of life. And it can serve us well to the extent that we treasure and hold so precious times that are gone, people that are no longer with us. But we can see how it can hurt and harm and distort the present when the past is given more reverence than it is due. In the early part of this parsha, Korach, Dathan, and Abiram have raised an insurrection against Moses and Aaron. They are condemned, as of last week's parsha, to remain in the wilderness due to the chaos surrounding the report of the spies. And they declare that Moses and Aaron have gone too far, that they have a rightful claim and should be given more honor, more responsibility, let's face it, more power. And in one of the more astonishing verses in the Bible, in my opinion, in Numbers chapter 16, verse 12 and following, Moses actually sends for Dathan and Abiram. He leaves the door open for negotiation. It's what a friend of mine taught me is described as a golden bridge. When there are two absolutely fractious parties, one really has to go extra miles to extend an invitation for dialogue and repair before it's too late. So he actually sends for Dathan and Abiram, but they said, "We will not come. Is it not enough that you brought us from a land flowing with milk and honey to have us die in the wilderness, that you would also lord it over us, even if you had brought us to a land flowing with milk and honey and given us possession of fields and vineyards? Should you not gouge out those men's eyes? We will not come." Even if you had brought us to a land flowing with milk and honey, is it not enough that you brought us from a land flowing with milk and honey? The disconnect that they engage in at that moment is stunning, isn't it? Where had they come from? Slavery in Egypt. Bidiyuk. Exactly. And suddenly, it looked like a land of milk and honey. A very pointed, deliberate use of language here by the authors of the Torah. Nostalgia comes from the Greek words nostos and algos. Nostos, the idea of return, particularly to home. Sometimes nostos described or translated as a homecoming, and algos, pain. Nostalgia was actually coined originally to name a condition, a malady of extreme homesickness. Nostalgia, for a very long time, was not considered positive, though there's a tremendous field of study about it that I'm fascinated to learn more of. I consider myself a nostalgic, sentimental, even foolishly romantic person at times. Well, a lot of the time. And generally, that is now considered a very positive attribute. But it is a condition that can be a very mixed blessing. Just take a moment when you hear the word nostalgia, just let your minds go wherever they go. What are you nostalgic for? Who? When? What? Let's take a minute. It's kind of a mix, isn't it? The Jewish people is a very nostalgic people, are we not? We don't forget. Memory is a core part of our identity. If it weren't, we wouldn't be who we are. But I am moved over and over again by the way Judaism as a whole has incorporated, yes, a yearning, pining for the past, and an enormous ongoing commitment to building a future. There are so many reasons on the list for why I think Judaism has endured, and this, of course, is one of them. A reasonably healthy relationship with nostalgia. Nostalgia can hurt, but it's a hurt that lets us know we're still here. And that can be quite comforting if managed with love and sensitivity. But it is a delicate balance of not being stuck in the past, because too much yearning can really take us out of the present. And when we make the mistake of thinking that earlier times, as difficult as they were actually a time of milk and honey, then we are deluding ourselves. And we are siphoning needed energy away from doing the work of the present and building for the future. I can think of few times of the year when nostalgia is as important for our American identity. The 4th of July, as we are in this Independence Day weekend, can really be occasion for us to yearn for an America that we think was. Maybe we yearn for an America that wasn't. We are in a very transitional time in this country's history, where I fear that there are too many who would like to turn back the clock to a time that really wasn't so great for a whole lot of people. People that, despite what some people think, are actually people. And that concerns me deeply, my friends. Turning back the clock is not desirable or possible. We can only go forward. I caution us all, even as we ought to celebrate what this country can yet be, but to not give in to the feeling or the temptation or the seduction to think that what was not too long ago was a place of milk and honey. We have much healing to do. But Shabbat comes to remind us of what could be. And our question, like the very one posed to our ancestors when many of them wished to turn around and run back, when it was not at all possible, the question we ask one another and must ask ourselves is, how will we move forward? Let our nostalgia, our remembrance of what was good about the past, be the foundations upon which we build the future. I wish this beautiful country a healthy, hopeful, free, and just 246th birthday. May we build on the strengths we have and move forward through this wilderness together. Shabbat Shalom.